Have you ever wondered about CFO services? Are they right for your company? How much does a CFO even cost? Well, if this sounds like some questions that you want answers to, then stay tuned because this video is for you. Well, hey there. I'm Kimberly Ferguson, CEO and founder of Emerald Expectations Accounting. I'm so happy that you're here. The Emerald Corner is a place where life and business meet, so I want to share with you the process of running a business while also maintaining a life with your loved ones. In today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit more about CFO services, so I'll kind of expand on what a CFO is briefly for you because I have covered that in another video, which I can go ahead and link right here. But what I really want to talk about is how much do CFO services cost, okay? And then we'll talk about comparing part-time versus full-time and all that good stuff too, okay? Let's jump in. So first of all, what is a CFO? So you should know if you've watched my videos by now that this is a chief financial officer, okay? So this is somebody who is watching over the financials, making sure that everything's going as planned, looking into the future to say where do we want to go and kind of mapping out how to get there as far as the finances go, right? So they might provide some basic services such as, bookkeeping, financial reporting, payroll processing, cash flow management, that kind of stuff. But then also some upper level things. Maybe they provide tax strategy or tax preparation services to help you minimize your tax liability, and also just basic forecasting and making sure that financials align with what you expect them to be, as well as financial strategy. So higher level, let's make sure that we get to where we want to go and meet all of our goals in our financial situation, right? Now, each one of these services has kind of their own hourly rate that is associated with them. But generally speaking, you can probably expect to pay anywhere from $100 an hour to $500 for a CFO, depending, of course, on their experience level, what type of services they're actually providing for you from that list that I kind of just gave you, etc., right? Do they have experience in your specific industry? So on, okay? According to Glassdoor, the average salary for a full-time CFO is between $153,000 and $279,000. So that's the average full-time CFO. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but how many big businesses out there have CFOs? And the answer is all of them, right? So that's kind of the range of salary that those types of companies are looking at to hire a CFO on a full-time basis. Now, if you're a small business owner, you might be thinking, heck no. But there's still an option for you to have a CFO, and that is a part-time CFO, right? So what's the difference between full-time, part-time? One thing, obviously, is the full-time is working for you 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, etc., right? They're literally at your beck and call. They're sitting at the desk down the office from you, or they're ready for you whenever you call if they work from home, right? Now, part-time obviously is doing those same services, but probably for multiple different companies, right? So they're not necessarily at your beck and call. They're not necessarily available whenever you need them. They don't necessarily do things the way that you do things, right? So we've obviously got some pros and cons there, but a part-time CFO can be a great benefit to you because of the cost, right? So rather than having to pay that $279,000 salary, you can look at more like $2,000 or $5,000 a month instead of that high number. So depending obviously again on which types of services you are wanting to have them do for you and how much time it's going to take them throughout the month. But most small businesses probably only need maybe like 2 hours a week or 3 or 4 hours a week. So keeping that in mind, you can keep the cost of a CFO down really low compared to hiring them full time, right? The biggest thing to keep in mind when it comes to a CFO at all, whether they're part-time or full-time, is that hiring a CFO really shouldn't cost you any money. So obviously you're going to have to pay for their bill, their, invoice or their salary, right? Depending on if it's full-time or part-time. But in reality, they should be making you or saving you as much money as they're costing you. So they kind of wash each other out, right? So either they're growing your revenue or they're helping you decrease your expenses, or potentially they're helping you with tax savings if that's something that they do. But either way, the overall total cost shouldn't be reflected on your profit and loss. Or in other words, the service pays for itself. So keep that in mind when you're considering whether or not you can afford a CFO. I tend to think more along the lines of, can you afford not to have a CFO? Do you have the financial know-how and experience to be able to make those decisions and do those things on your own? Because chances are, you've only worked with your business, or maybe, a handful of other ones if you've had multiple businesses, but an accounting professional, a CFO, has worked with usually hundreds, if not thousands, of small businesses just like yours. So they're able to bring that knowledge to the table for you to make sure that their service doesn't actually cost you any money, right? So I actually had a fun story from the other day with one of my CFO clients, and this is kind of an oddball thing, but it does happen. So one of the things that I talked about in my previous video is that having a CFO service of multiple accountants who work on your specific financial situation is the ability to detect fraud. Now in this specific case, it wasn't necessarily fraud per se, but this particular client, I pull their checks every single month to see what their checks look like, right? I want to know who they're writing checks to, what they are for, etc., right? So I pull their checks, I see what the checks look like every single month, right? And this particular time, I was looking at the signatures on the checks, and for some of those checks, they stood out as different from the other ones, right? So I reached out to him. I asked him if somebody else signed his checks for him. He said no. I told him that it looked like that might not be the case. So he was able to address that situation before it turned into a bigger issue. So think of a CFO as your new best financial friend, right? We are someone who has your back in business and helps you to make sure that there's not issues like this. There's not payroll tax issues. I have another client who is dealing with over $400,000 in payroll taxes that they didn't know that they owed because they thought that QuickBooks was paying their taxes for them, and they weren't. And so those types of things bring a value to your company that you can't even imagine unless you're in that situation. So not only those types of little things that, they can save you from, but also, of course, being able to help you actually grow the profits in your business so that your business can be thriving and it can continue to thrive for many years to come. So if you don't have a best financial friend, then I would love to chat with you about that. So if you do want to connect, my information is in the comments below. But what do you think otherwise? Do you think that a CFO service is something that you could benefit from? Do you have any specific questions about a CFO and what they can do for you? I'd be happy to answer those if you'd want to drop them in the comments below. Well, thank you so much for spending just a few minutes of time with me today. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.